Alright, so far we've been doing cartoon faces and cartoon hands. So what comes next, logically, is we're going to do a whole cartoon figure. So in cartooning, just like in other drawing disciplines, we use basic forms, basic shapes to construct our figures. This project today, we're going to be drawing a cartoon rabbit in the style of maybe a Bugs Bunny kind of character, starting with an action line in the middle, adding on the basic shapes and forms, finalizing details, and then adding shading to get a full-sized cartoon character. Let's get started. Alright, so the most important thing in your drawing happens here right at the beginning. So what I'm doing here is I'm drawing an action line. An action line is basically the backbone of the drawing, or it shows the general gesture of what's going on. A gesture line, if you will. Now what I'm doing here is I'm using basic shapes to build this up. The head of my rabbit is going to be a basic sphere, with the same kind of guidelines we always do. And his body I'm using is kind of a shape of a cashew. Here I am drawing the shape for the eyes up above, and I'm drawing two circles here, and that's going to be basically his cheeks. His nose is going to be on the top there where the cheeks intercept. Now I'm building basically a puppet frame. Just imagine that there's sort of sticks going through all of the form, like basically a skeleton, right? So here I have one arm, the shoulder that goes to nibble, and here's his other arm on the other side. And here I'm drawing his hands using just basic circle shapes. This is how we build up the pose for a character. The pose of the character is very important, and so it's always important to use this kind of puppet construction to get the gesture and the action that you want. Now I'm adding a general shape of his ears. I kind of ran out of room at the top there, so I'm just trying to fit it in. I apologize. Here I'm throwing in the tail shape in the back. And now I'm going to start speeding it up, because what we're doing from here on out is trying to add these details. So I'm choosing lines to show the cheeks and the jowls of the rabbit. I'm darkening the line around his eyes and adding pupils as a detail, and the two buck rabbit teeth there at the bottom of his mouth. I'm then adding out these big fluffy sides of his face and these sort of detail lines around his eyes and his eyebrows. I'm going to add that fur texture at the edge of the face. I'm going to start drawing in his mouth coming out from his jowls. I altered the curvature of his head in the back to make it look a little zanier. Made those teeth a little bit bigger. Now I'm darkening my lines around the ears. And really choosing what kind of gesture I want these ears to have, and adding the detail of the opening of the ear inside. I added a little hair at the top there to go over the top of his eyes, so we know he's kind of a scrappy boy rabbit. I'm putting the tongue in his mouth, and I'm darkening in the inside of his mouth. Drawing the edge of his neck and adding a little collar to his turtleneck shirt that he's going to be wearing. Now I'm drawing that arm. Notice there at the inside of the elbow I put two little lines to represent wrinkles in his clothing. I also put an extra line in his armpit where that clothing creates a wrinkle. Now I'm drawing his hand using those same hand drawing techniques we learned in the previous video. I'm going to do the left arm now, adding his shirt, giving a little boxed edge. I add cuffs on the bottom of his gloves. And then I'm putting in the thumb and the fingers to create that little punching fist. He's a boxing rabbit. I'm not sure what's going on here. Now I'm drawing the bottom of his shirt. I stop it a little high on his body to make it seem sillier, more cartoonish. I'm starting to add some details as far as the fur on his tail, the stripes on his shirt. I'm picking out those lines on his legs out of the ones that I sketched in. I'm starting to be decisive about which line I'm going to keep, which line I'm going to get rid of. And I'm drawing in his foot. I said his foot should be longer, make it seem more like a rabbit. So I just lengthened it. Always something you can do, just make a different choice. Now here I go and I'm cleaning up all my construction lines. So hopefully you're starting to internalize this process. You're starting to see a pattern for how these things work. We start with a gesture line. We add the basic shapes or basic forms. We start adding details. Eliminate our construction lines. Darken the lines that we were keeping. And then ultimately, you add shadow. And this process can be applied to anything you're drawing. Whether you're drawing it in a cartoon style like this, or you're drawing it in a realistic style, or any of the styles in between. So here I'm adding tones to different areas of his body to create a distinction between, say, his white stomach and his white nose and his gray body. Leave his tail and hands white. I'm adding in a little core shadow there just to give it a sense of form. Going around and fixing all those lines. Make sure they look really nice, really dark. Give it a little variation in pressure so that it gets thick and thin. Give the line some character, we call it. Character to your line. Make those details more pronounced on the face. We want these cartoon drawings to look pretty clean. And there you have it. You should have your cartoon rabbit. We learned today how to construct a full figure using an action line, building up with shapes, adding details, and adding shading. Can't wait to see what you did. See you next time.